Hello! Today we are talking about the crumple zone of a car, specifically how it ties into the principles of physics and how it keeps the driver safe. To start, the crumple zone refers to the part of the hood and the trunk of the car that is designed to deform in a controlled manner in the event of a collision, with the primary purpose of the crumple zone being to extend the period of time it takes for the momentum of the driver to change, thus lowering the average amount of force being exerted on the driver. Most crumple zones are meant to deform by around 25% of its length. It does this by incorporating a material known as engineering plastic, which is designed to be durable against light collisions, but deform by up to 25%, as previously mentioned, with heavy collisions, effectively replacing metal by being more cost effective and safe to use with vehicles. In fact, it is so cost effective to use engineering plastic, it would be more expensive to make the body of a car using just straight up metal. This also in effect reduces the kinetic energy present in the collision, as the crumple zone is meant to try and force collisions to be inelastic. And as we know in inelastic collisions, the vast majority of them have a final kinetic energy lesser than the initial kinetic energy due to dissipative forces such as friction or maybe loss due to thermal energy, thus making it easier for the driver to survive. Let us show an example of the crumple zone in action. Right. Three, two, one, go. The cars colliding indicates an impulse and a change in momentum for both vehicles. The crumple zones extend the period of time it takes for the impulse to occur, leading to both drivers being safe in this scenario. One. The crumple zones of a vehicle are found within the outer frame and shell of the car and feature no moving or complicated parts, making them incredibly cheap to implement in any vehicle. In fact, it would be more expensive to create a car without a crumple zone, as it means you would be making a vehicle with more expensive materials. As for exact numbers, it would vary from vehicle to vehicle, but in general, engineering plastic that is used for the shell of the car are priced at around $1,750. The shell of the car is probably the cheapest part of the vehicle. The engine and the electronics present within the car are definitely the most expensive. Seen as a crumple zone is not a preventative measure, but rather a safety feature that only works upon a collision to the back or front of the vehicle, it means that the crumple zone is not a feature that only works sometimes, but it will come into play in every single possible collision because in every single collision, at least one of the cars has to have the rear of the car hit or the front of the car hit. Unless the person manages to have another car land on top of it, like dropped off of a plane or something, like it's Fast and Furious, I can't really think of a scenario where a car wouldn't have the crumple zone being used in a collision. Exact statistics for how many lives have been saved by the crumple zone can heavily vary, as normally when the crumple zone is being used, pretty much every other safety feature present on the vehicle will also kick off as well. But this is to say that the crumple zone is more like a general safety feature. It works with all the other safety features to just ensure that the driver has a higher chance of survival in general. To start, due to the fact that the crumple zone is designed to crumple, it makes the cost of repairing a vehicle that has been in a collision very expensive. As the entire crumple zone has to be replaced, you can't repair it, and because the car crumples inwards, that means that the engine has no protection from a collision. The front of the car has no protection from a collision, so on and so forth. Only really the driver would benefit from the protection offered by the crumple zone, which is a good thing. I wouldn't want a car designed to protect the engine and not the driver. But at the same time, the materials that are used for the crumple zone, the aforementioned engineering plastic, the idea behind engineering plastic being used to create the shell of a car, it's supposed to be it will withstand light collisions, like if you bumped into something, but crumple in on a heavy collision in order to protect the driver. But that doesn't happen all of the time. Sometimes engineering plastic will deform to light collisions, and that can make it pretty annoying to repair, because to repair that, you know, you might get scammed by the mechanic. He says, "Oh, this light dent, you have to you have to replace the whole thing," or something like that, or just scam you out of your money. But regardless, from a personal standpoint, I wouldn't care how much money I had to spend to repair my car. If my car saved my life with its safety features, I wouldn't care that it costs more money to repair now. If anything, I shouldn't have gotten in the crash in the first place. Research is being done on creating materials better than engineering plastic to create crumple zones with. The idea being that, as I mentioned earlier, engineering plastic is notorious for still deforming to light collisions. So if a new material is made that didn't deform to light collisions, yet deform for heavy collisions, that would be amazing, because then you won't have to get bothered by your mechanic trying to convince you that half the car is broken when it's one tiny dent, just try and scam you out of an extra $1,000. And besides that, another promising idea is just to see if deformation can be forced into a more specific shape to allow more time, like a greater delay in the change of momentum, because the larger amount of time it takes for the change of momentum to occur, the larger amount of time it takes for the impulse, the less force will be imposed on the driver. So if the crumple zone itself can somehow be forced into a specific shape upon crumpling that maximizes the amount of time, it would protect the driver even further. But currently, this idea is being actively investigated, so we're still unsure if that's possible or not. All in all, the crumple zone of a car is probably the best safety feature that exists when it comes to vehicles. It's present on every single civilian vehicle on the road. Pretty much every single crash that it will occur will see the crumple zone being put into use in some effect, prolonging the amount of time it takes for the change of momentum to occur, making there be less force on the driver. Also, whilst remaining incredibly cheap, literally so cheap that if you didn't implement a crumple zone, it would be more expensive. Who has heard of that? A safety feature that's more expensive to not implement. And the only downside to that is the cost of repair, even if you do get in a collision. And regardless, the argument can be made. Who cares about expensives when it saves your life, right? I'd rather get in a car crash and survive than die. But regardless, even still in the future, you might see new materials come out that makes the cost of repairing the crumple zone become super cheap, a cheaper material, or maybe something restorative that will immediately restore itself or something. Something that can be repaired instead of having to be replaced. But all in all, crumple zones are an amazing addition to any vehicle, outside of maybe military ones. Continues to help save lives to this day.